What's up, nerds? How you doing? Welcome back. Square the Circle Music Channel. You're back here again with Mr. Major. That's me, talking about circles and squares. A little bit something different tonight. Not really. We're still going to talk about music, but we're going to focus on something kind of special. We're going to focus on my want list. We're going to focus on all of the things, all the magical dreams that I wish would come true. Just talking about stuff that I wish would get repressed or pressed at all, for that matter. I have just hundreds and hundreds of albums, not that many, but I have 100 or more CDs of these fantastic bands and these groups and this music that has never graced the never been pressed to vinyl. And I wish it would. It'd be great to be able to enjoy it in that format, to be able to hear it, and just the depth of, sonic, the loveliness that comes through, listening to things on vinyl and just having the collective, the piece of collectible history and just the art, the 12 inches, something to grab onto. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't need to hit this any harder than I already just did. Sometimes you just wish you could have it in your record collection, and here's a big chunk of stuff that isn't quite there yet. Or maybe it did, and it's just like needs to be repressed. Now, listen to this guy. All of you people out there and up there who are making records, please repress this thing. First on my list, a band I love dearly, always have, ever since the early 90s when I heard them for the first time. Didn't achieve monster success like a lot of those 90s, those early 90s bands that were playing hard rock and stuff. They didn't have that really familiar sound that people were loving to death, the Seattle sound and stuff that was coming out of LA and a lot of that type of stuff. They didn't really adhere to that. They didn't have that what people coin grunge sound. I'm sure you all know how I feel about that stupid phrase, but anyway, they didn't really have that kind of flavor, and so they were kind of brooding and kind of sort of emo, but kind of had a dark and moody and mysterious kind of vibe to them. And a lot of people didn't immediately latch onto it, but boy, I sure did. Poetic genius, and like I said, that kind of darker, kind of moody, somber sound. The guitar and bass sounds just amazing. Talking about the very famous band Failure. We all know and love Failure. First album called Comfort, 1992. Second album called Magnified, 1993. My favorite album. This was their third album. They got some pretty good notoriety for this one, 1996, called Fantastic Planet. I think they even got like a radio hit off this one. That's the Saturday Savior song. I'm pretty sure it was got a little bit of radio play. It never was on MTV or anything like that, I don't think, but really amazing fucking album. Only got that initial pressing, like some bands were doing still, some record companies were still doing a very limited run of vinyl pressings in the 90s, because it obviously wasn't popular. It wasn't a great way to make millions of dollars, so they were just putting stuff out on CD, of course. But those limited records that you can find out there, there's copies of it. I've seen a few. I saw it in a record show last 2 years ago. It was barely very good, hairline scratches all over the fucking vinyl, and the jacket looked like someone had barfed all over it or something like that. A dude still wanted $175 for it. It's ridiculous. Come on, please repress it. Repress this, please. It's such a fantastic fucking album, and their second one too. Magnified only got the initial pressing, and they did a repress of it maybe nine or 10 years ago for a record store day, like a music on vinyl pressed it or something. I had it for a couple of years. I shouldn't have sold it. Beautiful pressing, sounded amazing. There was some kind of like hoopla about it, I guess, when they sold the rights to it. Whoever did it, they didn't read the fine print, and they're known. The band Failure is known for having lots of little kind of like segue pieces in between their songs that occur, on their albums. And I guess the company that put out their second album, Magnified, when they repressed it, they omitted one of the major segues, like from the A side to the B side, and it didn't mesh well with how it was being pressed or whatever reason they had for it, and they're just like, man, fuck it, just leave it out. And Failure was wicked fucking pissed about it. So yeah. Anyway, these guys, monumental. Love the shit out of them. Greg Edwards, Ken Andrews. I forget the drummer's name. Excellent. They had a couple different drummers. They switched drummers up somewhere during the second album. Actually, I think like either Ken Andrews or Greg Edwards, one of the two guys, did a majority of the drumming on the second album. So yeah, those guys, dude, like they both play guitar, they both play bass, they both sing on all their albums. Like they're almost indistinguishable a lot of the times. It's kind of crazy. It's hard to tell who's doing what and whose band is it. It's one of those things. But yeah, hopefully they decide to give up the rights and get this thing repressed. However it works, I'm not sure how it works, but they're gonna need some dope money. Well, Greg Edwards is gonna need some dope money sooner or later. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah, Failure, Fantastic Planet, needs to be repressed. All right, moving on down the line, I'm going to bring up that obligatory selection like I always do. You all know how much I love the band Yes, so I'll go ahead and just get it out of the way. But for you prog nerds out there and anyone that loves the band Yes, this is an important one. You've probably seen it before. This is that really fantastic live recording, double disc. It's called Keys to Ascension. I'm pretty sure this never got a vinyl pressing. I've never really looked too deeply into it. But, they're just really not notorious for pressing their live stuff to vinyl. I don't know. This is, I think, by far my favorite live recording of this band. People are going to kind of just like freak the fuck out. They're going to be like, man, what about, what's the name of it? It's not Yes Story, is it? What's the triple LP that they put out, like, when they were getting Alan White on the drums? Like, in that weird intermediary period between, Bill Bruford taking a fucking hike and getting Alan White in the band, they were on tour for the Fragile tour, right? Or no, sorry, Close to the Edge. They were on the Close to the Edge tour. They get Alan White in the band, and they had all those recordings that ended up going on that triple LP, that famous triple LP with the brown cover art. Anyway, half the cuts are with Bruford, and the other half are with Alan White. It's like Alan White had like a week to learn their entire catalog, and of course he just did amazing because he's a fucking far better drummer than Bill Bruford is. Anyway, what was my point? I like this one. I like this one even so much better than that classic one. This was recorded sometime in the mid-90s, 1996. And it has all the original dudes on it. It's Alan White on the drums rather than Bill Bruford. But then everyone else, Wakeman and Howe and, everyone. Just amazing. And they play some of the greatest shit that you really didn't hear them play a lot live. They do a full version of The Revealing Science of God from Tales of Topographic Oceans. They do that America song, the West Side Story cover that they're famous for. The song Onward, what is that from? That's from Going Further 1, right? Or no, is that from Tornado? Fuck, I don't even remember. Awaken, my favorite Yes song. Dude, they just, roundabout, I don't even like the song Starship Trooper, and this is the best version of Starship Trooper I've ever heard because they finally get it right. It only took them, 25 years of playing the song to finally, do some justice to that song. Steve Howe finally just like really rips it up and gets it going, and Wakeman's keyboards finally bring that song, you know, to the cacophony that it needs to be. Starship Trooper, yeah. This album is just legitimately the shit. Fuck, I wish they would press it to vinyl. It would be just fantastic to have, you know, a triple LP of this on vinyl. Super cool art. Came like in a little box, double disc. Has all that great Roger Dean art, kind of 90s style Roger Dean stuff. He was getting a little bit different than what he was doing in the 70s. Kind of more futuristic and super cool. But yeah, this one, man, it'd be awesome to see that put on vinyl. So, sorry, everybody. There's the obligatory Yes album that I pretty much have every goddamn video. So, all right, moving along. Another one of those fanboy bands. Sorry, guys, I'm gonna do it again to you. One of my other very favorite bands of all time, from a different era, from the 90s. My favorite era, well, the era that I'm from. Talking about the band Pearl Jam, of course. You're thinking like, what? They've been repressing, blah, blah, blah. They've been doing the thing. And not this one. This one needs to be repressed. Really bad. The only initial pressing copies that you can get out there are, fuck, they're like $400 or some shit. They're like $400 or $500 for, it's a triple LP. Talking about that great compilation album they put out called Lost Dogs. It's like all their like beyond B-side stuff, like stuff you've never even heard or dreamed of from their catalog, stuff that never saw the light of day. They just, you know, from the moment they got together as a band and put out that, you know, seminal first album of theirs, and they're just like, okay, well, let's have this little basement studio in Seattle that we just like go down there and just, the, you know, analog reel to reel, and they got Brendan O'Brien on board and just down there chain smoking cigarettes, and just fucking record everything, and that's what they did. And they just have, you know, these are the lost dogs that just never saw the light of the day. Look at that. Look at all those fucking tapes, all reel to reel, just random crazy shit. We're talking 92, 93, 94, 95, primarily Jack Irons on the drums, but all the stuff, rando shit that, like, you know, Mike McCready was writing, stuff that Stone Gossard was writing, stuff that Jeff Ament was writing, just like all kinds of really, really cool shit. And a lot of Eddie Vedder's just like really random, you know, really just scourgy, crazy, you know, Tom Waits inspired, super cool tunes that like shit just no one's ever heard, you know. The only thing that ever saw the light of the day as far as like, you know, getting on the radio or whatever from this was that Yellow Ledbetter song that everyone knows, where it's just kind of like drunken Eddie Vedder rambling, you know, blues rock. One of their most notorious tunes. Is really, it's a charming tune. It really is. It's a charming tune. Not one of their best, but as far as like the other stuff on this album, that, yeah, there's some insanely cool. I'm talking like some really like punk influenced stuff. You know, those guys are notorious for being heavily inspired by all kinds of great, you know, punk rock, and like, you know, the Ramones, and they love Fugazi, and they love all that shit. You can get it, you feel it, and you sense it in these tunes that never, you know, got put on the major releases, obviously, but yeah, really cool. I really wish this would get repressed some way, shape, or form someday. I hope. We're coming up on all kinds of like, you know, anniversary stuff by all these bands. This would be the 30th. This year is the 30th anniversary of the first Pearl Jam album. So 1991. So hopefully maybe we'll get some really cool like anniversary pressings of some cool shit, and maybe we'll see something like this that's not $400, $45 hopefully. So we'll see. Okay, going to a different place. Random obscurity. Maybe one or two of you may have may remember this. This was like kind of like a real, you know, just kind of a no man's land type of period in rock history. And these guys kind of, they weren't the type of dudes to just be kind of like written off and forgotten about. They were all part of a very rich history of rock and roll music in the 90s. But then, you know, when the lead singer dies or whenever this happens, and you know what I'm saying, like the other dudes who were the real music makers, they kind of get forgotten. And it's unfortunate. And that's kind of a case of what happened here. Kind of a one and done. This was a supergroup. This was a supergroup that emerged I want to say sometime like in maybe 2004, 2005, something like that, 2006. Anyway, does anyone remember this? Maybe Army of Anyone. Kind of a stupid band name, but the music speaks volumes. We're talking, what is his name? Robert Patrick? I can't remember his name. Anyway, I think it's Robert Patrick, singer from Filter, the band Filter. Remember Filter? And the DeLeo brothers, Robert and, is it Mark DeLeo? Anyway, the DeLeo brothers, they were the guitar and bass player songwriters for Stone Temple Pilots, that incredibly hyper-famous band from the 90s. So they were responsible for all those great tunes that you remember. Scott Weiland didn't write any of those fucking songs. The DeLeo brothers did. Their guitar player, too. I think it's Robert DeLeo. Amazing fucking guitar player, just amazing. Amazing guitar player. And great bass playing, too. Their drummer in this group, it wasn't the drummer from Stone Temple Pilots. Greg Eklund, was that his name? Something like that. They got some random dude, I think he's like a Swedish or Swiss drummer. Pretty awesome fucking drummer, powerhouse, like can really, really play. And that, you know, he was a huge part of selling these songs. Pretty wild, thunderous drumming. But yeah, just full of hits, really great shit. That the first song, It Doesn't Seem to Matter. Oh man, that was the one that got on the radio. And that shit, dude, all these songs are fucking really great. It never got depressing. Because like, you know, just that weird intermediary period where, you know, vinyl hadn't made its resurgence yet. No record companies were putting anything out on vinyl. So it'd be really neat someday to see this kind of like get remembered and just get like a random record store day pressing like, hey, remember this, everybody? You know, nobody remembers this, but I sure as shit do. I think it's fan-fucking-tastic. So yeah, a gem, little obscure gem from the mid-2000s, Army of Anyone. Get this stuff, just awesome hard rock. Really great stuff. So, okay. Want to take a moment to once again thank everybody for tuning into my station and coming and visiting me and enjoying this little thing that we do, this little campfire session. We get to sit around and chit chat about music. I appreciate every single one of you motherfuckers, and I hope you're all having a really fantastic evening. So let's get back to what we were talking about. We're talking about albums I wish would get pressed to vinyl or repressed. So another bit of an obscurity here. Some might recall this album, this band. This, not a supergroup, but does include some people of note. So, do any of you remember this album? This band called Lusk. The album's called, what's it called? Free Mars? Is that what it's called? Yeah, Free Mars. The band called Lusk. So way back in the day, the band Tool, they had a different bass player all throughout the early 90s, a man named Paul D'Amour. And for whatever reason, he decided not to continue his musical career with the band Tool. And so sometime before they put out their album Anima, right after the Undertow album, sometime amidst late 93, 94, he jumped ship and joined up with a bunch of other dudes. I'm not even really sure who. Chris Pittman, the name Chris Pittman. Oh, Chris Pittman, that sounds really familiar. What did he do? I don't recall. Anyway, he really great songwriter, really clever, ingenuitive. I think he wanted to do things of a little bit more kind of pop sensible nature, maybe a little more experimental, a little more play with kind of pop music, but also with kind of synthesizer, that type of stuff. You know what I mean? And we'll probably wanted a little more control than what he had with the band Tool. Of course, Adam Jones being the primary gatekeeper of everything that goes on in that band. So yeah, Paul Dumore just really branching out and doing some really really cool, highly experimental, really cool shit. It's rock and roll, it's hard rock, but it has many many different flavors and many many different facets in this, and it's man, really really cool. 96, I believe, 1996, I'm pretty sure. 97, and this was released on the same record label that Tool, so I'm sure they all kind of just stayed in cahoots. Volcano Records, and this did get one initial pressing when it first came out, however many they pressed, and man, if you can even find one, whoever is going to sell it to you is going to want a few $100s, probably at least $200 for it. If you can even find one. I've only ever, researching it in the past, sometimes one will pop up on Discogs, and one will pop up on Discogs, and when it does, it'll get bought up almost immediately, almost within 24 hours. Boom, gone. $150, poof, gone. So it's fucking cool. It's really really cool. I really wish someone would just issue out the rights to some like Sacred Bones or something like that. Buy this up, come on guys. And repress this. It'd be really fucking cool to have on LP format. Really love those record labels that are doing that, kind of giving all that kind of deep underbelly dusty stuff a second chance at getting everyone to pay attention to it and remember it and love it for what it is. That's what these guys need. They need some remembrance. Lusk, Free Mars. So can only hope that Sacred Bones or Light in the Attic Records, or one of those really fantastic record companies, hopefully they'll buy up the rights to some of these more obscure titles and just kind of catapult them back into the limelight where they belong. All right, moving along. Another one of those dorky fanboy bands. I keep bringing these out, but these are my favorite bands, so fuck you. I don't care what you think. I love the band Fish. I love the shit out of them. Most of you kind of look at a dude like me and really? You listen to Fish? Come on, whatever. I don't even really like hippie music. I don't fucking like the Grateful Dead. I don't like any of those things that they're just automatically associated with or automatically lumped into. I come from Eugene, Oregon. I grew up in Springfield, Oregon, the neighboring city. They're basically the same city. It's just fucking hippieville, USA. And honestly, all that counterculture hippie bullshit, I can't fucking stand it. But these guys just always resonated with me. I don't know. I didn't even discover them until I was an adult. I was a full-blown, it wasn't like one of those kind of just kind of romantic, kind of high school things oh, it's fun to go down to the river and float the river and listen to Fish, no. All of my friends would just make fun of me, but I didn't care. I fucking love the shit out of them. I started listening to them when I was probably 23, maybe 24, and just the sheer musicianship and everything they're doing, the composition, the level of thought and inspiration that goes into what they're playing and what they're doing. It's just, it can't be matched. There's very few musicians and bands in the world that can really even come close to holding a candle to what they do, in my opinion. I'm talking about their studio magic. I'm talking about what they do, and when they create these artistic pieces of work that are going to be presented to the general population. What they do on a live scale, I couldn't care less for. I couldn't give two shits. I've never been to a Fish show. I've never been to a fucking festival concert. Like, I don't, that's not true. I've been to like a heavy metal festival, but like, you know, anyway, I'll stop going off about this fucking shit like I am and just introduce the album that I'm talking about. This album is called Undermine. Fish, man, they put this album out in probably 2004, 2005, something like that, to zero fanfare. Maybe their old school fans were kind of, you know, fell off the boat for a little while. I don't really know. This just kind of came at a weird intermediary period for them. I think maybe they disbanded for a short period of time just after this album. It didn't have the kind of goofy, hippie, you know, Zappa fueled flavor roots of what they had been doing for the previous 20 years of their career. It's had a real more kind of like somber, pop, sensible kind of sound to it. I really appreciate the recording style, the actual production value of it. It sounds way more just mature and just more thought out, rather than just kind of being just kind of a goofy noodle fest, you know what I mean? Like, there I go again. I'm just kind of like underselling them, which when I shouldn't, because they're really legitimately the shit, and especially what they do in the studio. They really do think it out. But this one just really, it just sounded so much more adult. Yeah, it kind of goes like the way you're looking at it right here, like it looks just like the Beatles album, the Let It Be, doesn't it? Yeah, I don't even know what to say. And this one never got the pressing to vinyl. They had repressed everything, or not repressed, but they had pressed everything on vinyl up to this point, I believe, all the way up through Farmhouse. I think Farmhouse came out in 2001, right? And Farmhouse got the vinyl pressing, you know, Story of the Ghost prior to that, and Hoist and everything got a vinyl pressing, and then this one didn't. And then ironically, everything after this started getting pressed on vinyl again, which doesn't make any sense to me. Well, save maybe one album. I think the one that came directly after this, or maybe just prior to it. Sorry, my timeline isn't the greatest, but they put out that album Round Room. Sorry, Round Room came right after this or right before it. Very sorry, I can't remember, but neither of those two albums. So I guess this one's a twofer. Both the album Undermine and the album Round Room by Fish. I would really love it if they would just please press it to vinyl. Somebody talk to what's the name of that record label that puts out Fish's Jimpa? I don't know. It's some weird record company, independent record company that they do, but fucking lame, fucking shitty. They've only repressed their albums like one time, and they put out limited pressings of them, and they immediately cost 60 or 70 bucks just to get right off the bat, and then right after that, if you don't get one, they go for like 150 bucks. It's just horseshit. What the hell, man? Whatever. Such a great band. Get a bad rap. Constantly get a bad rap. I can understand why, to a certain degree. But then again, there's people that'll listen to stuff that's just kind of like somewhat in the same vein, and they'll love the shit out of that, but they'll listen to Pink Floyd, but they won't listen to Fish. They'll listen to the Rolling Stones, but they won't listen to Fish. It doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't equate. It doesn't make sense to me. But whatever. Just my opinion, man. Okay. I'll probably make this like my last one. But I want to do like a couple special mentions that, like, I guess they're not special mentions. That just, it is what it is. There's one album that I had in my collection. I've had in my collection for fucking ever, and I lost it. I don't know what happened to it. It's probably buried in my car or something like that. But we were talking about that great band fucking love the shit out of them. Well, Ken Andrews, who's also actually responsible for producing a couple of the albums that I was just going over. I think Ken Andrews produced that, the Army of Anyone album. I think he was the producer of that album, and I think he also had a huge hand in the Lusk album. They're all like, everybody, you know, in LA, they're all just kind of like, they're all involved. And Ken Andrews is an amazing producer, and mixer, you know, engineer of all that shit. He's always been heavily involved with all those guys all throughout LA and, you know, the whole scene. So, but Ken Andrews had this amazing side project sometime in the mid 2000s area, along with that other stuff. And there was this band called Year of the Rabbit. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that, but that's one of those ones that I really wish would get pressed to vinyl. It never did, obviously. That kind of blind period where nothing was getting pressed to vinyl. But yeah, Year of the Rabbit, eponymous album, you know, wicked fucking cool album. Everybody check that out. Another one being this kind of like, I don't even know how to label them. Music these days has so many different subgenre names and labels and this and that. I mean, they're just I don't know, they're just a pop rock band. They're reminiscent of they're kind of Radiohead-ish. They're also kind of just, I don't know how to label them, but I've heard them a bunch. They pop up on my Pandora station all the time, and they had one pressing of this album, and it's immediately like, it costs like $200 or $300. Man, they're so great. They're called Palace. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the band Palace. They're a UK band. And I think the album's called Goodbye Forever, or So Long Forever, or something like that. Fuck, I can't remember. I've just researched it forever, and I would keep hoping that it'll get repressed. And it's like, I only ever come across like one copy of it pops up, and people want like $200 or $300 for it. And it disappears. Rich people buy it up. And who knows? Who knows if it'll ever get repressed? Anyway, I'm just rambling at this point, but there's just a few off the top of my head. Yeah, maybe someday. Christmas is coming. Another one of those obligatory ones. Man, I really wish they would repress this. It needs to happen. All of their shit needs to be pressed. I don't know what's going on with these guys. And the lockdown that they're withholding. I don't know why they're withholding and why they won't do vinyl pressings of their albums. We've got the one legitimate one of this that came out in '96. And that was it. And of course that shit's $300, maybe even more. And then I had a bootleg, or, you know, an unofficial, not a boot, an unofficial pressing, you know, like on like neon green wax. I had that for a year or two, and I sold it. I don't know. I don't like, it sounds really pretentious and stupid to say, but I don't know. I just want the legitimate pressings from the band. Everyone's, ooh, they don't need more money, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I don't care. I want the legitimate pressing from the dudes who created the art. I don't really think there's anything pretentious about that, okay? It's just my personal preference. I want to give my money to the people who make the art. That's it. And then I know, and you know, that we are going to be getting something that's legitimate, that's quality, because they are known for that. They're known for, yeah, they'll charge you $60 or $70 for these LPs, but it's going to be legitimate. It's going to be a real heavy-duty piece of craftsmanship. You know, that's the type of band they are. They're craftsmen. That's how I feel about them. They're fucking craftsmen of rock and roll. So we got that first legitimate pressing from these guys in '96 for this album. A slew of unofficials and boots. They keep putting out, there's people who keep ripping out boots all the time. I see them all the time, $20, $30 that people are getting for these horrible looking. The jackets look like shit. The art looks like shit. All the font on the jackets and the pressings are garbage. They sound horrible. Same thing with, Lateralis had a slew of boots and a slew of unofficials until they finally did that legitimate one for real. And I'm not really very happy with the presentation. I think the jacket hologram thing is kind of lame. They didn't add any of the original Alex Gray art that was included in the CD format one in the original pressing from 2001. Now I'm just getting nitpicky, whatever. And then that's it. And then 10,000 Days, no official pressing. Their newest release, Fear Not Kill, no official pressing. What the hell's going on? The least they could do, since it's like, well, this is the, what is it? This is the 20th anniversary of Lateralis this year, right? Yeah, something like that. You know, and we had the 20th anniversary of this one many years ago, 5 years ago now. So, man, it would have been really great to have a new reissue of this with all the legit, super cool artwork. You know, now it's really easy in LP format to do this type of lenticular thing. I have albums that have this type of thing. It'd be really cool to have that. They never did that. So these guys, we'll see what's coming from them. I don't think these guys are done. Everyone seems to think these guys are over and they're done and that's it for them. I don't think so. So I guess we'll see. This has been fun. Thanks for listening to me hem and haw about all these things that I want, that I wish would come to be. But just as life is, you don't always get what you want, right? The wise words of old Horse Lips Mick Jagger. Can't always get what you want. But thanks again for showing up. And thanks again. Don't forget to like and subscribe to all my silly shit. So we'll see you again next week for something special. Peace out, everybody.